the first to know Nsem-Pii TV.
Mamefa unko lawyer Paul Adom Otchere. Na abusia wone Rev Ntim Fordjour asen South mrashe bedwani apekwe enkomo bia mesere o sesa enkomo wei eho behia se wo bete na saa animdifo mienu we dio omuwo emagana no enya asam ketua lititiru Rev Ntim Fordjour na wedie abusia enya fei na meto atoa ensem a ACC ewo man konkron Ghana ha ene eniema NDC amayoko parliamentarians eyetia na ado down kakofo ado aban na ye tu abama wo mu enu na bia no na saa niema no atene na ekuti omo no Rev Ntim Fordjour atimu ediegu ho a enya asem ketua abusia mame ne nko na ensema hodo a Rev Ntim Fordjour woni lawyer Paul Adom Otchere wo mahwegu hoi enne anopai Koko TV yeba Nsem-Pii TV ensema hodo a egupun so no yebesan ediatoa atifo so.
Would you be bold enough to say, Rev Ntim Fordjour, that politics may have been responsible for the Z9 still flying, that if Dominic Nitiwu's application to Parliament had been approved in 2021, perhaps we would have had different kinds of aircraft?
Well, I think recent events have taught us that politicizing the Ghana Armed Forces and politicizing platforms on which the president travels, because if the president had been on that trip, he would have been on that aircraft. So events on hindsight have taught all of us politicizing such platforms have not helped us at all. And our friends, I listened to your brilliant editorial. Our friends on the other side, Kudeta Blakwa and many other stalwarts of the NDC did very unfortunate petty politics with platforms on which the president flies, including presidential jets, and resisted torpedoed efforts at getting additional platforms, for the Ghana Armed Forces. And so these are very sad times. I mean, the torpedoed efforts of acquiring offshore patrol vessels for Ghana Navy. In 2021, the torpedoed efforts in acquiring 6 aircrafts for the Ghana Armed Forces. So when you do all these things and on hindsight, you get to know that no, today, 2025, we need to take certain steps to support the Ghana Armed Forces. And they need fighter jets, they need aircrafts, they need helicopters, they need additional, aircraft in particular. 2 that will be dedicated for executive travel, which is the presidential jet we're talking about. And even in country, there ought to be a dedicated executive helicopter, 2 of them. And so you come to that determination, and you need the support of the whole country, and you just oppose that to the pronouncements that same government, when in opposition, have made, and it becomes very difficult for them to come out to bring a proposal to do the needful. But one thing we've forgotten is that we, on our side, we do not do politics with the safety of the president and with the Ghana Armed Forces. But we are waiting for them to initiate the discussion and initiate the proposal for us to know what they intend to do now. What we started doing, which we didn't have any support. As a matter of fact, at the time when the Falcon, the presidential jet which President Akufo-Addo travels on, had gone under several wear and tear, goes for maintenance in France, and it can be grounded for 3 months, 6 months, and the president on many occasions used commercial flights, but on a few occasions where the nature of the travel and the location required, the exigencies required the use of private jets, you saw how President Akufo-Addo was bastardized. That was the first time we saw presidential travels being used for politics. And they managed to poison everybody's mind in this country. They drew, caricature about presidents bathing in the air. There are people who are not presidents, who are ordinary like myself, who fly commercial, and they get to take a shower on the commercial flight. And yet, they put lies that is unheard of. Meanwhile, the president had never even sought or even taken a shower on any aircraft. But all that short, they even went further, Blackwell went further to vow that should they come to power and find any vice president or president of his stock, of his government, flying on chartered jets, other than commercial flights, he's going to resign. He made it clear, and they are playing all the videos. But between January till now, the vice president and the president are on record to have used privately chartered aircrafts. But that is not a problem for me, because I have said that my principle is that any platform suitable, any aircraft suitable for the president or the vice president to embark on their presidential travel, the state must support them in the absence of a presidential jet. So if it is a privately chartered aircraft, if it is a befitting one, and the state will have to pay for the safety of the president or vice, I, Ntim Fordjour, will support that and will never do politics with it. But they did politics with it. But it has happened in their time. He should be bold to resign, consistent with his principle. Now he's the foreign minister, and he sometimes accompanies on some of these ones. Now they have come to be hit with a reality, and the reality is that Ghana Armed Forces, as formidable as they are, and as strong and reputed as they are, in Africa and beyond, they need a lot of support. Paul, can you believe that Ghana Armed Forces, within the sub-region, among our immediate neighbors, Togo, Ivory Coast, Burkina, Ghana Armed Forces is the most underfunded military.
Oh, including Burkina and Togo?
Burkina, Togo, Ivory Coast, all have higher military spending than Ghana.
What did Dominic Nitiwul say Parliament should buy in 2021 that was rejected by the NDC?
In 2021, specifically, it was 6 L3 L39s. They were fighter jets. And, those fighter jets help strengthen the assets of any
fighter jets to throw bombs on somebody.
No, the fighter jets to be able to protect and safeguard our territorial integrity. We always talk about, our borders are porous. We always talk about threats of violent extremism and terrorism. We talk about threats of other emerging threats. We need fighter jets in additional to our stock to be able to reposition our might to that optimum level to be able to fight and contain any such threats. As we speak, we grapple with certain threats of Galamsey has become a sophisticated national security threat. Many methods in the past have not worked. Now they are using river guards. We have heavily armed militia guarding rivers and guarding Galamsey sites. You are going to send river guards without weapons. How are they going to fight them? But if we were able to equip the Ghana Armed Forces with unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, they're like mighty drones, manned. So someone can sit somewhere in Bondase, in Teshi, in Accra, Burma Camp, Kumasi.
Is that the TV?
No, not this one.
This one? Okay.
Not this one. And control it. Fly it. We can just get about 3. One for the southern sector, one for the middle belt, one for the northern.
What does it do? It brings information, video?
It goes to take surveillance, like a drone. So as it takes surveillance, it will be able to detect threats. And then where it's armed. So where it has to unleash, some arms, it will do. But in this case, it can be used in a way where there are unauthorized mining going on, particularly along the river side. You shoot to scare, not to kill. You shoot to scare. And when people see, such unmanned, heavy, robust, unmanned aerial vehicle flying on top of their sites, if they are illegal miners, and then they're shooting to scare, nobody will have to send men there, whether national security, who will end up going there to even, perpetrate the Galamsey.
They get compromised.
Yeah, they get compromised. So these are the discussions we should be having. And these are discussions that have been on the table. Can you believe that last year, at the very advanced stage, where the Ghana Navy was supposed to be supported by 2 offshore patrol vessels, one stationed on the east side, one on the west side, to be able to safeguard our waters, our maritime security, ensure piracy is clamped down on. They torpedoed it with politics. So a time has come that Ghana Armed Forces, resourcing must become a national security priority. It must be a national priority. And for some of us, we are advocating strongly for that. But they must come boldly out of wherever they are, first to apologize to Ghanaians that when the reality was told us by President Akufo-Addo government but the then led Minister Dominic Nitiwu. And all these proposals, some of it we find expression in Hansard, contained in parliamentary reports, and we used our opposition might to torpedo it. We have come on Hansard to realize that they were the needful investment that we should have done into the Ghana armed forces. And today, we think that we should go ahead to do it. You remember the Falcon? People always talk about NDC's claimed in last year, 2 years ago, that the Falcon is the third best presidential jet in Africa.
Well, they said it was good until 2030.
Yeah, they gave up to 2030 and all that. So how come they're not using it now? President John Ejekunkufo, in his wisdom, saw in 2007 that the state needed dedicated aircraft for the Air Force, and that would be used for executive travels. And for that, there had to be two. So there was the Falcon, was a smaller one, which eventually came, and there was a recommendation for a wider jet. And that wider jet, there was an option of going for Boeing or going for Airbus. But there was the real commitment paid for, a down payment paid for the Falcon. So in 2010, even though there was turnover, because there was that initial deposit, if you don't go ahead with it, you lose your deposit. So they paid whatever had to be paid, and then the Falcon came. The decision to buy the bigger one was led to politics, the political world, to purchase it.
And what happened?
And it ended up being thrown away. You remember at some point, President Mills, had a fantastic commitment to want to continue, and then he set up a committee that instead of the Airbus Boeing, he wanted a cheaper one. He thought the Embraer would be a good option. Sent delegation to Brazil. They came back, and you remember July 2011, the then Attorney General Martin Amidu came out. Honorable Martin Amidu came out to indicate some concerns, the discomfort of the then President Mills as to the handling of the people he put in charge of the negotiation of the Embraer, and how uncomfortable he got, and the public got this perception about some people trying to put some things on it, and then the whole thing, and the political world just dwindled, and that second jet never came. So pressure of utilization had come on the Falcon and had been used more than it was planned to be used. Now we need to have that conversation.
Somebody just sent me the story published on September 28, 2021, and it says, the minority in parliament has said it will resist attempts by the Akufo-Addo-led administration to purchase a bigger presidential jet for the country. The ranking member on Foreign Affairs Committee, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, said the move will never be backed by the NDC minority when it is presented to the House for approval. The Akufo-Addo administration, there's a quote from Ablakwa, it says, the Akufo-Addo administration will not get the support of the NDC in purchasing a new aircraft. We are not convinced that there's anything wrong with the current jet, he said. The president, quote, still, the president and his ministers have not been transparent and accountable enough. Is born out of insatiable appetite for luxury. We are not going to endorse, collaborate and support anything that only seeks to advance the president's insatiable appetite. Mr. Ablakwa also indicated that he is seeking to file another urgent question on the cost of the President Akufo-Addo's recent trips to the US, and he told City News that he hopes he gets answers when Parliament reconvenes next month. The challenge now, he says, is that the House is on recess. The House will have to resume before the Speaker can admit the question. There are a number of questions I'm pursuing, he said. There are new questions for National Security Minister on the President's recent trip to the US. President Akufo-Addo has come under fire from his Member of Parliament in North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who has consistently accused the President of wasting taxpayers' money on hiring luxurious jets for his foreign trips instead of using the existing presidential jet. That's a story called from 2019. Another one says, we did order, this from an MPP person, says, we did order 6 NGL-39 fighter jets from Czech Republic. The usual suspects shot it down. We also ordered 6 helicopters from Russia. That order has been there since 2013, and that was also blocked. As for the presidential jet, it was President Mills who cancelled the order for an appropriate one. Then we got ourselves involved in Embraer and the whole government official one business. The rest is the sad case of political ping pong. Another one says, we do not need a new presidential jet. That's from Samuel Brian Boabing. Those in government pushing for one because of Chobo should think twice. Mr. Mohammed's track record on jet acquisition and scandals that followed remain fresh on our minds. The current presidential jet is in excellent condition and in a Blackware's own ways can serve well beyond 2030. It is unacceptable for President Mohammed to live like the Sultan of Brunei while ordinary citizens struggle to afford 3 square meals a day. That's Samuel Boabe. Honorable Ntim Fordjour, it doesn't look like the story is going to end.
Yeah, and it's because of their utterances in the past and their posture in the past. Now they are hit with the reality, and they are rather shy to come out to initiate the discussion and to bring forth to the table the proposals that are needful for the Ghana Armed Forces. So, I think that they have erred big time, and they have to eat the humble pie and apologize to Ghanaians. We were in opposition, and we did reckless politics with platforms of the Ghana Armed Forces, of the Navy, of the Air Force, of the Army, and even for presidential travels. Now we're in power and we think that we erred. Ghana, forgive us. President Akufo-Addo, forgive us. When that humble step has been done, then they can come to the table, bring proposals. We will respond accordingly, based on the proposals they will bring and state our position. Mm-hmm. But our principle remains that President Akufo-Addo and the MPP, when we're in power, initiated key retool to support, to resource, the Ghana Armed Forces, which were blocked. And that principle has not changed. I disagree with the fact that the president should use his brother's jet. I disagree in principle.
Why?
Because it's unethical.
Unethical?
Yeah, it is unethical.
Well, but now they're saying that for the circumstance of traveling to Japan, he could have used his brother's jet and government pays him for it.
It's unethical. The fact that the president uses the brother's jet,
that's it on the
it's concession of the fact that the president cannot travel commercial at all times.
At all times.
And therefore, there's need for a befitting presidential jet, which the state must take steps to acquire. So that principle is what the NDC must be bold to, apologize to Ghanaians and take. President Trump has a luxury private jet
of his own. He uses it for the campaign, yeah.
But he uses Air Force One. Why when he was going to Alaska, why didn't we see the Trump or the
Trump plane?
Yes, the Trump.
That's the one he used for the campaign.
Why didn't we see it?
It looks like a very big plane.
Very huge, ultra luxury. Why didn't he use it? Because state security protocols will not permit that. Under what circumstances?
Well, but also the Air Force One is more powerful.
So it's for a purpose, because it's a military. Whenever the president is flying, the platforms that he's on must be the Air Force platform. Where possible.
The Trump is controlled by the Air Force.
Absolutely. So this presidential jet is just semantics. It's words we have all come to terms. We have all come to.
It's actually an Air Force plane.
It is a military plane. A military plane. An aircraft belonging to the assets, the fleet of the military, and 1 or 2 assigned for such executive travels. And so that is we've got it wrong. What if tomorrow, President Ketia or Ato Forson or Dr. Baumia or Julius Debra or Paul Adom Otchere becomes president, and he doesn't have a brother who has a private jet, and we have demonized the principle of the state acquiring befitting presidential platform for travels, and how the president will be compelled to travel commercial at all times, and how feasible is that? And do we want to now set a trend that if your brother doesn't own a private jet, you cannot become president in this country? That's a very dangerous one. It's unethical. Conflict of interest matters and all that. So all those people claiming Stanley, claiming Jatta has saved Ghana, and it's unethical. And it's not a conversation we must be having. It is a concession that you need a private jet because you can't fly commercial all the time. Jatta is private. Fancy a situation where President Akufo-Addo was flying Bounty's private jet or Gabi Ochedako's, private jet. Imagine we could get to a black one, the NDC was the kind of, up in arms, the kind of campaign they would have diabolic campaign they would have waged against that. But they want us to clap. And so it is on humanitarian grounds. Is Ghana that poor? Is Ghana that, that broke? That we cannot afford to prioritize the safety of our president and our vice president and our high profile VVIPs just because